down the line a bit. We've got Anthony, Naveed, Elizabeth, and Ali, and we're going to have everybody introduce themselves while I sip my coffee. So let's start with Anthony. Go ahead. Tell us a bit about you and your business.
Okay, great. I'm Anthony Chen, one of the financial advisors at Life Cost Financial. It's an honor and privilege to kind of share the stage with great esteemed panelists here. Thank you.
My name is Naveed Darwani. I'm a pharmacist by trade, graduated from the University of Georgia. Currently operating probably multiple retail pharmacy locations and newly working on a software company to enable pharmacists to work with physicians. So that's my mission here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Babalu. I am the president and founder of Pivot Path. We are a brand marketing and communications firm located both in Lawrenceville, Georgia and Freetown, Sierra Leone.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ali Jamal. I'm the CEO of Stable Gold Hospitality. We're a real estate investment firm based here in Atlanta, Georgia, that own and operate various type of real estate assets across the country, hotels, apartment complexes, etc. Great to be here and look forward to connecting.
Awesome. Let's give them a round of applause, everyone. All right, you guys, so we are just, I'm going to give you a whole bit of transparency. I didn't want to forget my glasses, so I wrote everything out in super big print. So this is the behind the scenes look that you get over here. So we're going to just dive right into it, and we're going to, well, just tell me, everybody, how long have you been in business? Okay, let's go down the line.
Be 15 years in August.
15 years. Started in Gwinnett?
No, actually up in Buffalo, New York. Finance in 2008, clearly the best choice ever.
All right, Naveed, how about you?
It's been 10 years and I started in Gwinnett.
Okay, Elizabeth?
It'll be 5 years. This year, started in Gwinnett.
I know you started in Canada, yeah?
I started in Canada, so I purchased my first real estate asset at 20, so that was 20 years ago, and started Stable Gold Hospitality 13 years ago here in Georgia.
Okay, all right. So let's get down to the advice, because a lot of us, how many of you, just by show of hands, are starting your business? Not already starting your business? Okay, how many of you have been in business for a few years already? Okay, how many of you are hoping to start a business? All right, there we go. That's a nice distribution there. So I know when I first started, I really needed advice, and I didn't know where to find it. So you're lucky here today. You're going to get some good advice from our panelists. So let's say, let's start off with this question. What is your number one piece of advice for someone just starting out who wants to open their own business? Let's start with Ali.
Yeah, so I guess the number one piece of advice would be to really understand the tactical components of what you're looking to accomplish. And what I mean by that is ask yourself some of the tougher questions initially that are going to help get your business off the ground. So how am I going to access capital? How am I going to connect with potential investors? Generating capital is going to be one of the most important components of starting the business. So once you have that idea, making sure you have that, so you have a foundation to move from.
So I'm more of a storyteller. So for me, I always believe that you have to start with the why, and really being founded and grounded in what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing. And so understanding your purpose, understanding the mission, because even when it's tough and you can't access capital, or it's tough and no one around you truly understands what you're trying to do, being founded and grounded in what you're trying to do in your purpose is going to be really what's going to propel you to go forward.
I second that, so I'm going to have to think of something else real quick. But one of the things that I always tell people is know your opportunity cost. I don't know if you're familiar with that terminology, but what are you going to be giving up? Do you have a family? What is your fiscal outlook going to be like? What's your downside? And understand what's your backup plan. When I started, I kept a job somewhere while I was starting. Just understand your downside so that you can then know that you can go all in, right? So once you know your downside, plan for it, so you just go all the way.
Well, something about that, but also definitely expand your network, following or finding a mentor experienced in the business world, and being able to differentiate those who are just kind of throwing darts at all, saying, "Oh, you can't do this, you can't do that," but to be able to differentiate that from someone who's giving you legitimate advice and not criticizing for the sake of criticizing, but because it's been there before, and being able to have the temerity to show and acknowledge this person is giving good sound wisdom versus someone who's just kind of being a negative Nancy.
I really love that because that was my life, like as an entrepreneur in the beginning. And that goes into our next question, and I want anyone to jump in. I don't want you to think we have to go up and down the line so much, no pressure. But when we're talking about mentorship, right, knowing your opportunity cost, being able to understand your why, and then having capital, right, to me, those 4 parts are really what makes a successful entrepreneur. It makes the journey a lot easier, right? How many of you out there have mentors? Okay, good. No negative Nancy. Keep them out of the game. All right. So when we're talking about, mentors, let's talk about building and managing a support system. How has that support system that you now have contributed to your success?
I mean, I can go ahead and say, we all have mentors. A lot of us try to choose our mentors based on the success level of your mentor and you want to go in their path. I actually have some mentors that have failed in their careers trying to create a business and didn't get to them or got there and crashed. So I kind of have a mixed bag. And it's good to see those people becoming cheerleaders, understand from them, but also you can find the ones who are successful. So I think having a hybrid of those, and that's what I have in my pocket, and so it's always good to hear both sides.
Anyone else want to talk about that?
I'd say for myself, there's 2 ways to look at it. So being very kind of conscious of how you access those mentors. And so one of the things I've done, for example, is I've joined organizations like the Gwinnett Chamber or YPO or Vistage. These are organizations that kind of will force you to connect with individuals who you can learn from. So I think that's one thing that has been very helpful. And then frankly, a lot of times you don't even need to tap into those sort of groups. You can just go to YouTube. I mean, there's mentors that you connect with virtually. I mean, there's a lot of different options in this day and age versus a long time ago. So I would say look at the full spectrum of opportunities to learn from people.
Most definitely, and I agree with you about YouTube University. It has helped me accomplish many things that I didn't even think I could. And I think it's a great untapped resource that people aren't always willing to talk about. For some reason, people don't want to say, yes, I've gone to this YouTube channel and I learned how to produce a podcast, or I learned how to, build a pool, or whatever your business can be. So I really appreciate you guys sharing that part as well. So let's talk about discipline. Okay, I'll share a story super quick. When I first started my business, people kept saying to me that I was so lucky that I got to get up every morning and be in my pajamas for as long as I wanted while I clickety-clacked on my computer, i.e. my job, right? And to me, that didn't make any sense because every day I got up, I changed my clothes, I got ready for work, and I went downstairs to my office, right? I work barefoot still, but you get dressed and you get ready for the day. And that to me required a lot of discipline on my part. It was a challenge in the beginning. So what do you guys consider, well, share a story where you've had to engage in discipline and how self-discipline has helped forge your business.
A lesson that was quickly passed on to me by my mentor was not just time blocking for time blocking's sake, because sometimes we could say, oh, we're working, but when you actually look through the day, what actual work gets done. When I was early on, I wasted a lot of time. And when you're time blocking, especially when you're growing your business, he had me color code my calendar on green, yellow, and red. So red is really just your personal downtime, so that's non-business time. Because I think the danger is that as we're kind of going into this entrepreneurship is we're always on, and we never have the ability to turn off. So that should be the first thing is block out your red time, and then green time should be all focused on networking and being able to generate business and revenue, and not mix up the green time with the yellow time. Yellow time is really just servicing and anything that's non-revenue generating. So while we might be thinking of spending like 2 or 3 hours on this social media post or this marketing idea, but let's be honest, is that really bringing in the revenue or the clients or getting me closer to that potential prospect? If the answer is even remotely no, gotta be honest with myself, that's not good to me.
So I agree with that, but in addition, I think it's really important to be disciplined in knowing what partnerships or clients to say yes to and when to say no as well. I think at the beginning of my business, I wanted every client. I'm like, you need some marketing, you need some branding, I gotcha. And I realized over time that without me having that discipline and knowing which partnerships or which clients to take on and which ones were not going to be as fruitful, I wasted a lot of time doing a lot of things that made me feel really unfulfilled because it wasn't my purpose, right? So I think as good as it is to have a client, as good as it is to have a new contract, really being disciplined and understanding, okay, does this really aid in the trajectory that I want to go in with my business? If not, it would be okay to say no, and or just to refer someone to a potential, supplier or someone that's very similar with complementary services to provide that service for them instead.
Yeah, I kind of call it the shiny tool disease, where like you basically find the next thing and you want to do it, and it's probably not the best way to go. But I go back to what you said earlier, like you want to write out your mission, vision, and values of your company, and you don't just have to do things only for fiscal gain. If it's adding to the culture of your company or your mission, it's still something you might want to do, something I do. Because if you want to be in business for more than 2 years, 3 years, 4, you want to get to 10 years, it's your brand, and you're your brand, and you better believe in the vision that you're creating, otherwise others aren't going to.
I love that, you guys. Ali, do you want to jump in for that one too?
Sure, I can. I would say for myself, what's helped on the discipline side is managing activities versus managing outcomes. So as to give context to that, when I was in sales, for example, making sure that when I went to the office, I called, let's say, 50 people that day, making sure I hit that activity metric. That was a lot easier for me to manage than worrying about the actual outcome. So I think that, if we can focus on that component, the discipline will organically just come through your day-to-day actions.
Thank you, guys. What I'm hearing from each and every one of you is intentionality, right? Identifying a goal, being intentional about achieving it, and sticking through with that, right? And Anthony, I feel like you're peeking into my computer because I color block too. I think it's so important to keep me accountable to myself, right? So I love that about being intentional. Now, lately, I've been hearing a lot about having a college degree, not having a college degree, having a master's, not having a master's, what role it plays in the success of your businesses. So what do you guys feel about this? Do you need a college degree to be successful as an entrepreneur?
Depends on the business model you're creating. Sadly, I have to have one because I'm a pharmacist and that's my business and that's where I'm going. So it's validation. I didn't even know what I was talking about, but I have people in my company. My first employee ever is now like my district guy and he's killing it. And he didn't come out like a college and he's making great money and loving his life, and it's all because of hard work you put in. So I think both paths can be very successful, and I don't think that there should be like you must do this and must do that.
Anyone else mention?
Yeah, and I would agree. I think it really just depends on what your personal preference is a lot of times, and what I mean by that is, you don't specifically need to have an MBA, etc. if you're going into real estate investing, as an example. But it helps, and I think it also depends on what you're looking to get out of the program. So for me, going through university, I've built relationships that I still connect with to this day, maybe do business deals with, etc. So I think if you're focused on, really building discipline for yourself as well as building a network for yourself, regardless of industry, education can be a very valuable thing.
Let's go. Oh, go ahead.
And to kind of second that, the story I always like sharing, kind of as a quick shout out to the company called Joseph, Job Removal. He started his company at 16. Very originally as kind of landscaper, and slowly kind of moved into, as the name applies, junk removal. So now he's at what? He has now 25 employees and almost 4 dump trucks before the age of 21. This guy is managing a company before he's of legal drinking age. Doesn't have a college degree. He knew what he wanted, and he always kept himself in terms of educated by doing a lot of reading in his day and finding the right mentors. So it kind of is that it depends on the field you're going to. College degree might be necessary, but don't think it's the only path in order to run a business.
Okay. And so I'm going to backtrack to what Ali was saying about a network. So how has having the right network, and Elizabeth, you mentioned this too, knowing that every client isn't for you, right? I think in the beginning of many of our entrepreneurial journeys, we do want to be the person that can do it all. I know that was true for me as I became involved in my entrepreneurial journey, I had to really create boundaries and learn how to say no. I decided to be Warren Buffett in my head and say no more than I said yes. Because when you do say no, you open up opportunities for the type of clients that you do want. So how does that and having, how does that say no, right? Refining who you want to be your client, knowing who you want to serve, right? Because that's what we do as entrepreneurs. How does that help with your network and growing your network to the point where your network is intentional and powerful and meaningful?
I would use the example of the strategic partnerships. And so oftentimes in business, you cannot do anything alone. You have to have strategic partnerships. They're also mutually beneficial, right? So if they have certain connections and or the revenue and or something else, but you're also pouring into them as well, then you know that it's going to probably be a very fruitful relationship. But I think that why, everything, I mean, I'm not trying to sound flowery, but everything literally goes back to that why. Why are you trying to establish that partnership? Why are you trying to connect with this particular person, even if it isn't a strategic partner? If it's a client, if it's just a friend, there has to be a why and a mutually understood purpose in terms of why you're trying to connect. Yeah.
I just want to second, third, fourth, fifth that, because if you're doing B2B, like business, not business consumer, if you're doing B2B, you just want to write down like, what are they getting from you and what are you getting from them? Or like not getting, but like what are you servicing them for? Because otherwise it's not going to be a long-term relationship, right? And so you're just going to give them a service and you're going to make some money and then they're not going to use it anymore. So you're always wanting to make sure, that's how I decide, I'm like, if they want me to do something for them and I'm the only one benefiting, I don't even do it. I'm like, I'm not doing it because you don't believe me. Soon you're going to find a better deal, you're going to find something else. So I'm really big on picking the right partners and I just want to reiterate what you said.
And I don't think you guys, the why sounds flowery. I think that's very Simon Sinek-ish, right? Like we all need a why. That's why we're doing this, right? We do it to be profitable, yes, but that is not what drives us as entrepreneurs, right? I don't know a single entrepreneur that's like, today I'm just gonna get up to make money. Like, we would like to, that's the goal, but I don't think that's what drives us to start a business, right? Because we oftentimes stumble before we get to soar, right? Anthony, did you want to add something?
Yeah, so I always go with the phrase, your network is your net worth. Whether someone is running a business or is okay running in a corporation or in a specific career. At the end of the day, this is something that took 2 years for my mentor to hammer into my head, is that technically we're all a salesperson. We're selling something, whether it's our expertise, our service, or something that we provide of value, whether it's to a client when we're running a business or to our stakeholders in the larger business. You gotta network, and be open in terms of when you're looking to network, it has to be a two-way relationship, and especially just kind of going, I guess, going back on that mentorship path is sometimes, this is what I had in my mind, is okay, what do I provide for the mentor? I got nothing, if anything, I'm the one that's learning. And what Daryl mentioned is that, well, actually, as a new guy coming in, you actually provide an additional fire or passion that I kind of had that, what's the word I'm looking for? Unkindled, but for me coming in to kind of spark that. So don't kind of discredit yourself. You could be that kindle for that senior partner, but a person that's been in 20 plus years in corporate where they might be a little jaded and you come in with that new energy and reignite them. So that could be an additional value that they would not be able to get elsewhere.
That speaks to everything diversity, equity, and inclusion for me. That's my jam, y'all. I love DEI and I love data. So when you say that, I think a lot of times younger people tend to underestimate the value that they bring to an organization. I for one think it's beneficial to, whether you're brand new, if you're a novice, to be an entrepreneur, or if you're seasoned in game, it's great to have multi-generational influences and mentors. They can help you establish a foundation that you might not otherwise have, and you can invigorate new ideas into their businesses. So thank you for mentioning that. Now, all right, you guys, we're going to shift gears a little bit. I want you guys out there, making sure everybody's still awake, to finish this phrase for me. Show me the money. Look at that, entrepreneurs running the money. All right. So as you can guess by now, we're going to be talking about capital, because capital is something we all need in order to keep our businesses successful and thriving, and to just get off the ground, really. So throw this out there to all of you. What was your first source of capital and how did you secure it? Because that's what they're perking their ears up for right now, right y'all?
I can go with that, I guess. So basically I was a pharmacist, which obviously we kind of work like at CVS and it looks like McDonald's, but sorry to put that out there. But so I was working, I worked for my first 2 or 3 years, I worked 3 jobs, raised a lot of capital, lived in my parents' basement, I'll be honest, that was not very fun. And then I actually, in college, I worked on a business plan. I've been working on, do kind of some mentorship in college. I actually created a legitimate business plan with Excel spreadsheets, all that stuff. Took it to a bank, had more than 20% down, had like 30-40% to put down. And at that point in time, they were able to give me the financing I needed. But it was not an easy road, and there was a lot of no's along the way. And there was a lot of family who was like, "I'll just give you the money, you should just do it." And I didn't want to do that because that creates, I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I took their money because they would be kind of having 2 cents on everything. So people always think that they say the self-made thing. For me, it wasn't like just to say I was self-made. It's more like just so I'm not controlled by people I know. So I think that's a good way. But I got a lot of no's, so I would just say like 96% no one wants to give me money.
That's an optimistic note. but that's real, right? That's real. I think a lot of times we enter into this way of life, because that's what being an entrepreneur is. It's a way of life. And we enter into it with these rose-colored glasses of, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna be independent, I'm gonna work for myself. And then you're like, oh, how am I gonna pay for these lights to stay on? Or my computer, right? So anybody else wanna share their capital story?
Yeah, so I would say it depends on, it varies in terms of how you can access capital, obviously. When I purchased my first home, we went through a bank, and that was similar, did savings, etc. As you're growing your potential opportunities, that's obviously going to look a little bit different. When I acquired my first hotel, we bought it in the midst of a really tough economic recession, the last one here in the U.S. And banks were not lending. No bank wanted to touch an exterior corridor asset in the middle of a suburb in Atlanta. And so I needed to, in a very short amount of time, try to raise the capital because I didn't have it myself. And so I think within about 2 weeks, kind of down for dollars between family, friends, whoever I could raise the capital from. Luckily we were able to put together the deal between various groups that I was able to tap into. But, of course, not everyone's going to have the opportunity to tap into family and friends. You might not have that network. But I think one thing to remember is that, here in the U.S., there's, comparatively to Canada, there's a lot more opportunity to access capital, either through creative financing. You have a lot more financial institutions. And you have a lot more networking opportunities with people who, if you can convince them that, look, I will do the grunt work, I will be the sweat equity, they will invest in you. And that's essentially how I bought my first hotel. That was my sales pitch. It was like, look, I'll live in the hotel for 3 years. I'll manage everything that I gotta do. We'll never be able to acquire this asset at this price point. So, if you believe in me and if you can, take this chance, this will be an opportunity for you to do very, very well as well. So I think sometimes, family is all you can tap into because a lot of us don't have a network past that. And so if you can and they're able to, invest in your idea, I would definitely, look at those opportunities. So.
Yeah, well, my story would be a little different because my business is different. And so for me, I've actually never had to go after a loan. Although I go after grants. I try to go the more cost-effective route in terms of not having to pay anything back because I am a service-oriented company. We provide branding and marketing, and so trying to get an office space, we try to mitigate our costs and our overhead to ensuring that we can still, make a decent revenue, but then also ensure that we don't have to incur the instances of having to go after a loan. So I think it also depends on the kind of business that you have. Not all businesses require you having to go after getting loans or this large amount of capital, especially if you go prematurely and not know exactly how to navigate it once you've gotten it. So looking at grants and looking at the things that are more better for your business, I think is also a beneficial route to go in.
Yeah, and I think it also depends on if you're an asset-based business or if you're a service-based business, right? So she's saying essentially more like a service-based business, so you can just grow that organically probably and just not pay yourself for a little while and then start getting that money down the road. So I think that's where everyone gets kind of discombobulated, like I gotta get money to start a business. No, you don't. I know people on Instagram making more than all of us in this room probably combined. Probably, they just figured it out. So I think there's a lot of avenues to go, and I just don't think they should be discouraged because of money. I don't think that should be, I know sometimes you need it, but you can be innovative. You can figure out some other part to get to your final mission that still falls in your mission, a small part of the business you want to eventually create, start making some cash flow and keep rolling. So.
I think another option could be a relationship with human capital. I sound like a broken record when it comes to networking, particularly in the service side of things. If we're going to take an example of, let's say, a physician or a new upstart attorney or accountant with dreams of having a practice one day, look at an option of finding a mentor in a larger firm and eventually spread out to these more independent firms and approach them. Because right now they are really desperately looking for a younger generation coming in. They need to do their own succession and legacy planning for their own business. So instead of just starting something out of nothing from scratch, this could be a golden opportunity for this younger generation stepping in, where not only are we going to be able to find a mentor, but finding someone that we're going to be eventually build a relationship with and buy out their business over time. So you don't have to come in with X amount of $1 million to build a firm, but rather, if you find a senior mentor or senior partner who understands succession planning, and you build that relationship, you will be able to, that's kind of one way to build up find capital without necessarily having to go through a bank.
Thank you for that. So I'm hearing a few different things. So if you're asset-based, you may go one route, which is the loans, the crowdfunding, if we will, right? Family and friends network, if you can. If you're service-based, you may just go for grants, you may just throw your hat in the ring and just start your business. I started mine the way that you was describing, just starting, because at first I had a service-based business. So whatever, if I had a laptop, then I could be a business, right? But then it became a mixture of services and assets. So I had to shift gears a little. So I share that with you to say, take each piece of advice that you're getting from our panelists and know when to shift gears if it's necessary. Your hair is fabulous. I'm shouting you out right now. I had to do it, everyone. I had to. Okay.
Also, before that one ends, SBA, I don't know if you're familiar with the Small Business Association, they have a lot of cool programs for startups, different diversity types of investments. So they will really help you start your business nowadays. And so I wouldn't sleep on them. I have an SBA loan for one of my companies, and it's a great avenue. So I just don't think that people know, I don't know if they know about it, they just think it's the government. They don't know how to go about that, but it's actually pretty good.
That's a great point too. I didn't know about the SBA until literally 5 years ago. And so, you learn along the way, right, what resources that you may have. All right, you guys, so let's move on to our next question. What was your smartest investment and why?
So I will start. Again, since we are service-based, my smartest investment so far has been my team, and also my greatest asset. Because I'm only one person. I'm not a graphic designer, I'm not a content writer, but I'm a very good strategist. And so I think investing in a really solid team, not necessarily saying you put too much money toward paying them per se, pay them, but you know what I mean. But ensuring that you have a really solid team in place, one helps you with scaling your business, so ensuring that you don't have to be the one doing everything at one time. But it also ensures that you have this seamless approach when it comes to your clients, right? And it's the body of your business, and so that's definitely my greatest investment so far.
So being in a position within a real estate investment firm, the thought process is that the best investment that I've ever have made would have been within real estate. But I think for me, as I look back, I'd say the best investment was within myself. So focusing on, for example, when I was in sales, I hired a sales coach. I've hired executive coaches as my company has grown. I've continuously invested in education. I got an executive program in Harvard that I'm going to in a month or so that I've been paying a lot of money to go to, just so I can be around people who I can learn from and keep sharpening up my skills. Those seeds that I've planted have beared fruit over time. Either through knowledge, either through connections, etc. So I think the investments, when we look at them, it's good to take a broader approach of all the different types of investments we can make, us being included. And the more you can invest in your knowledge and your opportunities to network, you're going to bear a ton of fruit for that. So.
Yeah, I think kind of second that, but what I would say is like when you're thinking of that investment, you're also thinking of return on investment. My best investment was just to get me to stop doing the day-to-day activities in my business. Was like I was doing the payroll, I opened the QuickBooks account the first time, I finally got the proper channels to handle my pay, everything, I was doing it myself because I couldn't afford it the other way. But once you replace your day-to-day activities that are really just kind of administrative activities at your company that you're going to do yourself because you're first starting out, once you remove those, you're free. You can just go blow your business up. You can just be around, going around, because you're not worrying about all the little things. Did you lock the door at the location? Just those kinds of things. So once you're that, for me, I invest a lot in people's and systems. Actually, systems is what I say. If you have great systems, good people will make them better. Is what I kind of say.
That is so awesome, you guys. I love so much of what was said just now about investing in yourself, right? Because a lot of times we don't think about that part. We think about investing in a service or something that we need, but the person is right in front of you, right? Every time you look in the mirror, you invest in yourself. That might be even downscaling when we're talking about broadening our horizons about what that might be. That during the pandemic, how many of you had offices that you decided to close? Because that's an investment in growing your funds, I would say, or not losing them, right? Not spending them in a way that's not going to be beneficial for your companies. So I love that about just surrounding yourself, again, the networking in circles of people that are going to add value to you. So an investment of your funds, your education, and for me, I think one of the largest investments that I really pay close attention to is my time. Where do I spend my time? Right, going back to the chunking of the calendars. And when you see where you spend your time, is it in alignment with the vision and the mission of your company, right? What do you do with your time? Because your time is going to dictate what you do with your money, okay? And so now, let's see. Let's go to reflections. How are we on time?
Good.
Excellent.
10 minutes until Q&A. So be thinking of some questions that you want to ask.
And we'll have a drum roll for Q&A when it starts. All right, so some reflection questions. What is one myth you wish you could debunk as an entrepreneur? I'll even change that up a little. What is one thing you discovered that simply wasn't true? What are the lies that we tell ourselves or that we buy into about entrepreneurship?
Do we have enough time?
Right.
Two things that immediately comes to mind. I don't know if many people might have read the book or the whole term of the 4-hour work week. You go into business to work more so you can work less later on in life. That's the reality. There's no such thing as just creating a business out of thin air in 4 hours per week. That's just not going to cut it. One major thing that I guess in terms of myth is this whole failing hard and fast. There's a big differentiator between taking a path that all other predecessors before us have tried before and failed and understanding, okay, I'm not going to do that and not going to follow that just for being the quote of failing for failing's sake versus failing because I took a particular strategy and method with all good intention, expecting it to succeed, but something along the way messed up, but I'm going to learn from this experience. So there's a big difference between failing for failing's sake, it's just because everyone's kind of expectation, versus failing and learning from that experience and going in with the full expectation I'm going to succeed.
What's that saying? We never lose, we only learn, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things that these people say, I think it was probably said today too, is hope you can be up here to learn from our mistakes. That's crap, I don't know. I feel like yes, there's some, but like the most things I learned from my own mistake, you gotta feel it. Like you gotta touch a fire and feel it burn. Like some of that builds your character so you can go the long way. Like yes, you might pick up some mistakes you can learn from us, but you gotta every time you have a mistake or something wrong happens, it's an awesome learning experience. You just have to change your perception like of what you're seeing. And so if you look at it that way, I've had that happen to this all the time. I lost like some contract but I had so much free time that I got like a 3x contract from that because that one contract was sucking my life down. So I'm just saying like, that was one thing that everyone told me, like, talk to everyone and learn from all their mistakes. I was like, man, there's a lot of mistakes. There's like thousands of mistakes I've made all throughout this thing and I didn't learn all those. So I just think you can still learn from your own mistakes.
Anybody else down there want to tackle it? Elizabeth's like, I didn't make mistakes then. I'm kidding.
I'll just say from a broader perspective, in this day and age, if you just go on social media, I think the optics of what it is to be an entrepreneur is so much different than reality, especially on the starting phase of the journey. So, like I said, I lived in the hotel that I bought for 3 years, and this was an exterior corridor hotel and not the greatest part of town. So, you have to put in the work initially behind the scenes that a lot of people are not going to see, and Instagram's not going to tell you that. So just the level of hard work that you're going to have to put in at the initial phase of the business, I think is not something that's discussed as much as it should be a lot of times.
I can absolutely attest to that. Some time ago, someone saw me doing something similar to this, and they're like, wow, that's so great that you're starting to get this success. And I'm like, starting? I've been doing this for millennia, right? I think there's the perception of who we are as entrepreneurs, and then there's the reality, right? So to that end, let's shift gears a little bit. Knowing what we know about social media now, because we all need it to a certain extent for our businesses, how are you leveraging social media in order to make your business more successful?
Well, I think she's the marketing.
Wow.
So my business is different because I'm in healthcare, so there's a lot of things I can't do on social media, a lot of things I can do on social media. So I don't really can't do as much on like Facebook and Instagram and stuff, but I can kind of do like post things like this on LinkedIn. Things that we've gone to, things that we've done, achievements, and for me, it's more what's called brand validation, I guess, type of marketing. So it's not like we're getting you clients, but it is so that people can verify our brand. So I want to work with myself. You have yourself in this room, and then you have yourself in the internet, right? So it's like you have to make sure that they both match and that they're valid. So I think that's how I use social media / online tools.
So, although I am a brand marketer, I'm actually a very private person, and so I don't use social media a lot for my personal. But I've realized two things. One, there's an importance in ensuring that you have your brand and you have the company, and there should be a little bit of a differentiator, because oftentimes people will follow the person to then get to the brand. It doesn't really happen sometimes the other way around. Like Elon Musk, people go to Tesla because of him, good or bad. It typically isn't the other way, and so just ensuring that there is a little bit of identity. If you're on LinkedIn, ensuring that your personal brand is out there, that you're networking, that way they can get information on who you are, trust you, trust your brand, and then go toward that. But then I wanted to kind of follow up on that last question too. I had like this deep thought or deep quote. So I oftentimes tell myself, I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. I think Maya Angelou said that. And it's a reminder that although I may feel alone sometimes in this business, I know I have a team, but the team is up to me. I'm the one they come to, that there are people that came before me to help me out, and those are also going to be coming behind me and also standing with me. And I think ensuring that I always know that I'm grounded and knowing that I am one person, but I stand as 10,000, always ensures that I'm going out looking for help, that I'm always tapping into my network when necessary, and then when I'm saying I need a break. And so it kind of all ties in. I know social media can really make it seem as if we're so successful and, oh, she travels the world, and you don't know how that's really happening. And so just ensuring that you stay grounded, but then also differentiate yourself when it comes to your brand. LinkedIn is probably going to be one of your best friends when it comes to really growing your business, getting new speaking engagements out of this, meeting other individuals that are like-minded, and so tapping into that is important.
I really like that about your brand and knowing the difference between your brand and your company. And I think too, you should invest in your branding. That is one of the things that really, at least for me, and I would love to hear, if it's worked for you all. Well, I know it's worked for you, Elizabeth, right? But, investing in your branding, I don't think a lot of people think about that for their different service-based or asset-based businesses. They don't see how it's related to their professional equity and their professional capital, right? So especially when we're talking about a place like LinkedIn, which I think is so underutilized, and I mean, that's where if you're a service-based or an asset-based company, I guess, but for me as a service-based industry, that's where my corporate contracts come from. And those corporate contracts for an entrepreneur, as we all know, that can be life-changing. It's a game changer. So Kim, I see you on LinkedIn pretty often, so yay, you're doing it right. But I want you guys to think about what that means.
And kind of to go down that brand, so I was, weird brand predicament, but I was a pharmacy, right, during COVID, and I was like one of the first ones to have the vaccine, right, and so everyone's like, whoever came to our location, they had to trust my brand that I was giving them a vaccine that was like legit, right? There was a time where everyone was like, what are you doing? And what are you giving me? And so our brand is very powerful. I think you've been in my location before during that time, so that's kind of, so they kind of trust your brand. You might buy things from Apple. Everyone probably buys things from laptops from Apple, but y'all probably don't look at the specs of your computer that much anymore, right? Like, maybe some of y'all do. You just go and go, it's MacBook Pro, I'm buying it, right? But like 10, 15 years ago, you looked and go, this much has this much RAM, and it has this much hard drive, and this much this. So their brand is powerful. And once you get a trust in a brand, whatever that brand gives you, it's going to be good. Everyone's like, oh, it's from Apple, it's going to be good. Like, and that's kind of, it was crazy. It's like, this from Gwinnett Drugs, this Pfizer is probably good. Like, like they didn't go like deep and ask a lot of questions because they trusted the brand, right? So your brand is very important.
That literally happened to my family. We saw Gwinnett Drugs. We went to get all of our vaccines there, and so that's how Naveed plays a role in our family's COVID journey. So, and now every time I do go by Gwinnett Drugs, I tell people, oh, you should go there. And, I think this speaks to the power of having a good and solid brand, but also the impact that it can have on a small business and a community overall. All right, you guys, so we're going to start to wrap up now, but tell me, what was your most rewarding, what's your hardest part about being an entrepreneur, and then what's the most rewarding part about being an entrepreneur? And no pressure, we have 2 minutes.
So I would say balancing. So I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm everything. And balancing and trying to find time for myself is still a constant struggle because I have so many dreams and so many contracts I want to go after. But trying to tap into that, and if you have any tips, please let me know as well. Trying to find ways in which I can find the me, like the me without the titles and everything, has been my most difficult thing to do in this journey.
What about your most rewarding?
Oh, thank you. Well, that's really sad, right? My most rewarding is kind of the flip it. I mean, like the same thing, to be honest. Like everything that you try to go after, there has to be some sacrifices, right? Not saying that it's a permanent sacrifice and there will always be behind. But me sacrificing certain things or certain luxuries or certain trips or whatever, it's been able to still play out at the end. So it's kind of like a catch-22 a little bit.
Total balance, absolutely. Ali?
I'd say for me, it's also balance. One of the lessons I've learned along the way is to integrate family in as much as I can within my business. So bringing the kids into the office, engaging my wife in what I'm doing every day and making her part of, the day-to-day operations and all the other kind of stuff. So I think it's hard, but sometimes there's strategies around how you can integrate the balance component of it. The most rewarding aspect of the business, there's so many things. I think it, for me, gives me purpose, something that I can move towards every day. I wake up and I have something in front of me that I know I can be a part of creating, and it starts off with a vision. So, in terms of how rewarding that can be, it's just unbelievable. So.
Yeah, so obviously I'm a pharmacist, so for me the most rewarding thing is helping a bunch of tons of people get healthier, stay better. It's also the most stressful thing because I can't help everyone. And like I want to help everyone. Like I get a text and it's like, can you help this doctor? Can you do this? And it's just hard to ever turn off. And so so kind of one of the things I've been trying to do is develop software to help other pharmacists just help me, like do it on their own, like get more people to get in this space to do that. So sometimes you just have to figure out that you can't help everyone, and so you need teams. So you got to find a way to help as many people as you can with what you're doing. So that's the hardest part for me.
For me, it would be starting out to be a little lonely at the top, because you've got that imposter syndrome, kind of self-doubt, and not really sure you're taking the right path, which is why I'm going to hammer again on the network part, or be able to connect with your colleagues in cohort to form kind of your own mastermind group, to troubleshoot situations that you're having challenges in, because otherwise, I mean, it's lonely at the top. You gotta have that poker face on and not let the world see you sweat. And in terms of the most rewarding, and mine is very easy in terms of being able to deliver hope and plan for people, realizing that, I can retire. That light at the end of the tunnel is not an oncoming train, it's the other path. I can get out of this tunnel. So that's the most rewarding.
Not an oncoming train, Anthony. Thank you, guys. Now we're going to open it up to some Q&A from the audience. So does anyone have any questions you'd like to ask our panelists? All right, I'm going to come up with you.
Thanks for coming out. My question is, how do y'all go about prospecting and acquiring clients in your individual companies and industries?
I think probably everyone here is a little different. My industry is healthcare, so it's really hard for me to just be like post a Facebook thing and say like, come get healthier. Like, I mean, it's just hard. So what I've done, and the best thing that I've done is, like I said, I moved myself in the company, and anytime I get a chance to work with potential client, I don't even really talk to the business. I just get my cell phone number and say, call me if you have any problem with anything. And sure enough, I get a text within 3 to 6 months about something that they need, and I'm like, I'll do whatever you need. And that once I fulfill that need that first time, I hit them, hey, you want to have a meeting of how we can do more for you? And it's endless now. Like my phone just, I have to tell people like, hey, stop texting me about this. You can look this up on Google, So, but just being, the fastest way to acquire business, I think for me, is solving someone's problem. So once you solve their problem, you show you can solve their problem, you've opened up a floodgate of potentially working with them in all sorts of things. So I'm like, that's kind of where I go with it.
Thank you, Naveed. Anyone else have any questions, or did anybody on the panel want to take that?
Yeah. Is that question more when we started out, or how we're acquiring our clients now?
Just really any insights you have as far as acquiring clients. If there's a difference between the two, then I'd love to.
Okay, so when I started out knowing absolutely nobody, tons of cold calling, tons of cold walking into business, and just sticking your nose in right now, what was shared before, dialing for dollars. Because when I started, I knew absolutely nobody. Had what things I would do differently now, or back then, what I am doing now is why I emphasize so hard on networking, is that your net worth is your net. Your net worth is your net worth. Not just networking for potential clients or prospects, but also people of circle of influence that you can provide introduction and referrals to, and vice versa. That is probably going to be the easiest way to grow your business organically, by referrals. So that would be about a third for me, and then the other third would be LinkedIn and social media, and the other third is everything else of my own generation. But early on, if you don't have a robust network, a lot of cold calling, there's no other shortcut around that, which I just need to forget.
So I go after a lot of, we do government contracting, government and then private. And so for us, it's a little different. I think the most important component is just relationship cultivation and knowing who to connect with. If it is contracts, you're going after determining who that individual needs to be within that particular organization. If it's a government a contracting officer, if it is government, or even if it's private, there's still someone in procurement that you can connect with. And just building the relationship. The contract probably will not come like that, but if you overemphasize your capabilities in your statement, solve that problem in terms of what it is that you can provide to them. Oftentimes, two businesses, A and B, oftentimes are providing the same services, but there's something a little different about you that will then propel them to give you the contract. And so, building the relationship, but just knowing that it takes time to do so.
I would say, once again, just managing your activities and hitting it from different angles. So as an example, we have a newsletter that goes out. We also have, I've written a book that I push out to 10 bankers every week. I have, we'll be on social media and we'll post 10 times a week. So we're very process driven and activity driven. And I think we try to hit it from a few different angles, and at the end of the month, you'll see, okay, I got 2 people, 2 potential investors coming in from LinkedIn, another 3 or 4 came in from my newsletter. So I think diversifying all the different ways in which you're trying to acquire clients is really helpful.
And I think starting out, just like Tom people just give you a shot and you'll do whatever it takes to get that shot. Like, I'll do whatever, man. I'll help you with whatever. I'm good at this thing. If you have any problems with this thing, call me. And when I have a problem with that company I'm working for, I'm gonna just call that person and be like, hey man, they're doing this to me, what can you show me? They prove out, then most likely I'm just working that person for a very long time until they mess up too. But yeah, that's really what it is.
Thank you guys. Any other questions?
Thanks for you guys' time. My question is around scalability, and what steps have you guys made to scale and continue to, I guess, hire people that are better than you at whatever you're doing, and what steps have you not made that has kind of like prohibited the growth of your business?
I guess I can kind of start with that a little bit. So when I started out, it was just me and one person, and then I had the second person and third person. And then when the third person quit, I was like, oh no, because I had no systems around how my business ran without that person. So early days, I made a lot of mistakes of putting a lot of, investing in just one person and the skills that they had. So I started realizing after that burn, I want a system for everything. I want a standard operating procedure for most everything, so when I can hire someone, I can plug them in and train them. So now we're at the point where I have 70 employees now, all in the system, and we're looking to highly expand now, and we're kind of at that point now. I don't know how to do the next step, so we'll be probably looking to get like a firm that comes in and helps with that training and getting to the next level of hiring. But I think the thing about scaling that you have to remember is like you really want to, whatever that job description, whatever that they're doing, you really want to have it like pretty well written out, because it's very unlikely you're going to be able to hire someone exactly like the person that just left you or left for good reasons or whatever. And it will reduce your stress as an employer when that person leaves you. Because you want, also it's kind of better for both relationships. Like my people know that they can leave me anytime, and they know we can have like a breakup at any time. So it holds people accountable. They're like, Naveed is not just gonna like depend on me to like, because he knows I can do all these things. Like, no, Naveed's got a system in place here, so I'm gonna do a good job, so I can stay here as well. And vice versa. And if they're doing well, they're getting hired in the company. So that's how I've scaled. Obviously, all of our businesses are different. So
I was actually going to second that too with SOPs or those processes. And so in addition to that, also having some measures in place to measure your efficacy, right? KPIs are real. They're really boring depending upon if you like to do them or not, but they're really essential to measuring the efficacy of those processes. Also trying to hire on a team that can fine-tune those processes, right? Since I'm not a graphic designer or I'm not a content strategist, I may go on Google to figure out or write a process based upon a client experience. But then if I hire someone to come in that fine-tunes it, it strengthens it each time. But then finding ways again to measure that. So if you have a particular service that you're providing, ensuring that there's some KPIs in place to measure that efficacy so you know when to fine-tune it, where it's not working, where it is working. That way if you have a new person come in or additional person come in, they know what the standard needs to be as well, so that you can keep that standard for your clients in terms of what they're able to get from you.
I'm a bit of a contrarian in terms of the scale aspect of things, and we've scaled over time. We've scaled across states. We're up to about 200 employees now, and what I've learned during that time is that scale, for me at least, came organically. We hit a point where we had to hire managers. We had to bring on more employees, and in management theory was, well, as soon as you can get the ability to start delegating. My challenge with that was that I didn't have the money to delegate. So, it's easy to say delegate, but delegating to someone costs something. So, as long as I could control the position and keep control of those finances, I did it for as long as I could, and then I started to slowly delegate. And then what happens, it kind of becomes a snowball, and then you have no choice but to delegate. then like, now I can't run the front desk at a hotel, obviously. So, so I think there's a force, almost we're kind of forced into believing that you have to delegate right away, but I think holding on to the position and managing your cash flow, in my opinion, is much more important than delegating at the beginning of your company.
Okay, thank you guys. We have time for one more question.
Thank you guys. This one in particular is for Ali. So I know you spoke of creative financing earlier, and I'm just curious, seeing as recession's already here, I think the Fed is going to talk on interest rates on Friday and probably push it until May. As we know, banks are going to start tightening up their purse strings. Now, my first question is, how much, as far as your investments go, how much are on personal investor funds and how much is on bank accounts, so like percentage-wise?
So it varies between each asset, and so we'll do, sometimes depending on the cost basis of the asset, and I don't want to get too much into detail, but based on the cost basis, sometimes we'll just buy it out cash, because if it's that type of asset, we can acquire it out quickly, and that'll just be with no investor funds or banks. If it's a larger asset that we're trying to dig down, then it might be a combination of both. We might do investor funds and bank financing. So it varies. The percentage-wise, I'd say we're probably 30% of our assets are owned by investors, and then another about 30% or so are bank finance.
Okay, and then my second part to that is, seeing that that's the case, if, let's say, banks are tightening up, their guidelines and whatnot, how much of this are you doing on seller financing? What are terms that you're looking for as far as, let's say it's a larger deal that you're not going to do straight up cash?
So I'll give you some very tactical knowledge, like from what I just worked on this past week, and I'll try to do it really quick. So I was on Facebook Marketplace, and I'm like a real estate junkie, so I'm like joining all these marketplaces trying to look for deals. I found a deal for a single family home. It's 0% interest, paying off the loan in 4 years. And the way I worked out the numbers is at 0% interest, the payment was low enough where I could do an Airbnb arbitrage and make cash flow. So we can get into details after the thing, and I can kind of give you perspective. But I guess my overall point is there's a lot of opportunity to be resourceful in these type of markets. So yes, the market will be in distress, but when there is distress, that's when the opportunities arise. And if you can be creative and resourceful, and with all the technology we have nowadays, we can be creative and resourceful, the opportunities are boundless. So.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you. That speaks to my heart, Ali, about recession-proofing your business by being creative, resourceful. That lets you be innovative and agile, which is what all companies, particularly those run by entrepreneurs, need to succeed. So on that note, I want to thank my panelists. Let's give them a round of applause.